Oh, TEDx. It has been a while. What's going on?
I grew up in Belgium. This is me at age 6, dressed up as a Smurf. I actually loved wearing all sorts of girls' clothes, but there are no pictures of that. These were not moments where my parents were proud and ran to their phone to take a picture for grandma. I was a feminine boy. I've always been feminine. Yet I grew up to identify as a boy and later on as a man.
Okay, well, that's the setup. But we are about to run into a whole host of convoluted twists and turns. So, let's begin.
I don't identify as transgender. I am what you call cisgender, someone whose personal gender identity is aligned with the sex they were assigned at birth.
Your sex was not assigned at birth. The doctor looked at you, saw a penis, and confirmed that you are male. Your sex is not an opinion. It is a biological reality.
But over the past 15 years as a family therapist, I have worked with many kids who are transgender.
You are a family therapist, and you promote the idea that sex is assigned. And you work with many kids. Many kids who are transgender. Kids. Got it.
They know that their gender is different from the sex that the doctor assigned them at birth.
Yes, the doctors arbitrarily decide a child's sex at birth. Sometimes they flip a coin, sometimes they throw darts at a board while being blindfolded, and sometimes they use a wheel of fortune, and even the nurses get in on the action with a betting pool. It all depends on the hospital, really.
Today, I want to share how one child living in their authentic gender can change everyone around them, their parents, their friends, and ultimately their entire community.
Authentic gender. Why do I think our speaker's definition of that term will be diametrically opposed to what that phrase would mean in reality?
Because when one child transitions, everyone transitions along with them.
Everyone in a community has to change in order to satisfy the needs of one child who has been nurtured to believe that their sex is something that was forced upon them. Got it.
I remember the day Carla and Tom came to my office. They are the mom and dad of a 9-year-old child they knew to be a boy.
Okay, a 9-year-old they knew to be a boy. But of course, this knowledge of biological reality has to be brought into question.
Carla put out her phone and showed me a picture of her kid. I saw a kid with a lot of makeup on the face, a t-shirt wrapped around the head to feel like long hair, and another one tied at the waist to look like a long dress. And I saw the ecstatic joy on their kid's face.
A 9-year-old dressing up in a silly fashion looks happy. Imagine that.
I said, "You have a beautiful child." Carla took the phone back, looked down, and said, "I don't see that. I don't see my baby boy. I see a freak." Immediately, big tears ran down her face. full of shame and guilt for the terrible words she had just said, full of grief for the son she felt she was losing, and full of fear for how the world was going to treat her kid.
And so this obviously distraught, emotionally unstable, and quite possibly overreactive mother came to you for help. A kind of help we already know is predicated on the claim that sex is a matter of opinion. I cannot possibly imagine that there is anything to be concerned about in this scenario.
Fast forward to 3 years later. I am in the New York City Pride LGBT March, and Carla is next to me. And now her kid is 12 and lives as Isa, the girl she is.
Jump ahead 3 years. Right, well, what role did our speaker play, I wonder, in a preteen boy coming to the conclusion that he is really a girl named Isa? And what will happen to this kid after they hit puberty, I wonder?
The march stops for a minute, and Carla grabs my hand. And I look at her, and she's crying, but with this huge smile on her face. And she says to me, "I never thought I'd get here. I never thought the world would be cheering for my kid, for her." And she's just running around, being happy, just being a kid. What happened?
Well, count me among those who are also curious. Tell us what happened.
So what happens for families like Carla's? How did Carla move from disgust and grief to celebration?
Okay, just a side thought for a moment. Wasn't there a father involved in this situation? One who came with Carla to that first session with you? Where is he in this equation?
About 7 years ago, with a crew at the Ackerman Institute, I founded a program called the Gender and Family Project. And we support hundreds of similar families. And we've identified 3 changes that families like Carla's are able to make.
Oh boy, a list! I love lists. They make for nice and clean commentary breaks. Go on.
The first one is awareness. It's an internal change. The second one is connection, and that's an interpersonal change. And the third one is community, and that is a social change.
Awareness, connection, community. Wherein someone's kid and their sense of themselves, prior to puberty, is thus the center of the universe. Do tell me more.
Let's look at the first one. Awareness. What is the first question we ask when someone is pregnant?
How far along are you? That's usually my first question.
Is it a boy or is it a girl?
Well, asking such a question as that really depends on how far along they are, doesn't it?
Why is revealing the gender of a child so important? Because parents, grandparents, and friends can start imagining the child. She's going to be so beautiful. She's going to love dancing and reading, and she's going to look just like you.
Yes, humans are naturally curious, and since there are only 2 options as to what a child can be, natural human empathy often wants to be able to celebrate the anticipation with the parents-to-be. I wonder if we're going to be told that asking such a question is some awful moral injustice.
Gender helps us move from an abstract idea to the stories and dreams about the person we're welcoming. At least in our Western traditions, gender is the tool we use to humanize life, to go from it to he or she.
Uh-huh. The point is made. What are we building to?
So if someone doesn't fit inside those binary traditions of gender, we don't have a language to comprehend them and to humanize them.
We don't? How about, I don't know, their name? You know, a person's actual identity, and not the one we're told is cobbled together from an assortment of irrelevant traits of being.
And through the wisdom of her own child and other parents, Carla understood that we are all trapped in pink and blue boxes. Literally like someone who realizes that the earth is not flat but round, Carla realized that anatomy is not always destiny.
Anatomy is not destiny. Well, true enough. Though it is a rather concrete indicator of reality. All the same, I am still dying to know how much of a hand our speaker had in changing Carla's perspective, and by extension, that of her child.
So that's the first change, and it has to happen inside a parent's heart and mind. The second change has to happen between parents and children. They need a renewed connection. Let's think about Tom, Isa's dad.
Oh, Tom has re-entered the picture now. For some reason, I thought the father wasn't worth mentioning at all.
When Tom discovered that his son identified as a girl, all of a sudden his new daughter was completely foreign to him. He had no idea how to relate to her outside of their father-son connection.
And this was exactly what Carla was going through as you described it. So what?
But when a kid is too different, their parents can experience them as the other and lose empathy for them.
The parents can? Then why are you focusing only on the father here?
Now, Tom did not know gender complexity, but he knew the pain of feeling different. He himself, as a young man from Colombia, had struggled with racism and fought hard to gain respect and recognition. Exactly what Isa was longing for: respect and recognition.
Ah, so here's where the intersection of multiple oppressions comes into play, right?
Right?
You're going to help Tom, who obviously doesn't understand gender complexity, to come to terms with the fact that his preteen son, who does understand gender complexity, you're going to help Tom by leveraging his negative life experiences into empathy for what could entirely be the passing phase of a child. Accepting and reinforcing a theory of gender confusion that brings that child both praise and attention. Two things that would never spur anyone into doing or saying things they might not otherwise were such reinforcements not present. Got it.
Through his own story, he was able to empathize with his daughter for the first time. He had found an authentic connection.
I am glad that our speaker looks so pleased with himself. I am sure this connection truly was authentic and not at all manufactured through the use of guilt against an emotionally fragile father.
So parents are gaining a greater awareness, are reconnecting authentically with their kid, but we know it takes a village to raise a child. The third change has to happen in the community. Parents also need the extended family, the neighbors, the schools, the place of faith to also change their views on gender.
Everyone else needs to think and believe the way we do, as dictated to us by our family counselor, who knows that sex is assigned at birth. Got it.
I recently worked with an African American family who chose this one particular school because it offered great education, had a large black community, and honored their Christian faith. And when their transgender son transitioned in second grade,
transitioned in second grade. I do not understand why grown adults think it is healthy to encourage or reinforce sexual awareness onto underage children. I just don't.
They proactively engaged the entire school. They met with the principal. They trained the teachers. They gathered with other parents. And when the day came to ask, will your school honor our son? The principal responded, your family is here to teach us that God makes no mistakes. We will all learn with your son. A prophet may lie in each of us.
A prophet may lie in each of us. The sexual confusion of a second grader is now an act of God, is it? I am sure that doesn't elevate anyone's sense of their own self-importance. And maybe it's just me, but the campaign the parents took to train the school for the arrival of their child sounded more like emotional extortion, if after all of that they then asked, will you honor our child? It just sounds a bit off to me.
What a success. They clearly had brought the entire school community along with them.
Brought or forced?
But when a community cannot change, the consequences can be disastrous. If some parents give up on their kid, it's not because they don't love them, but often because the communities that they depend on could not transition along with them.
Whoa, wait a second. A parent or parents giving up on their kid, that's not their failing as parents, that's the community's failing for not giving them support. That sounds like an epic cop-out. It also sounds like the lead-up to an epic guilt trip.
So, these three changes, awareness, connection, and community, completely transformed the meaning of parenting for Carla and Tom. Initially, they associated being transgender with, at worst, danger, and at best, solitude. It's a brutal world out there. In 2016, 26 transgender men and women were murdered in the US.
Were they murdered because they were transgender? Oh, well, you won't tell us that. You'll just drop that statistic as though it meant something. Tell me, how many cisgendered people were murdered last year? Do you understand how dangerous a world it is for cisgendered people?
In 2017, already 11 transgender women of color lost their lives of horrific acts of violence.
Transgender women of color. That is awfully specific. But again, did they lose their lives because they were transgender? Now, I'm not meaning to be insensitive here, but if these deaths were all cases of hate crimes, why isn't our speaker saying so?
Carla did everything she could to discourage Isa. Tom denied affirmation and just prayed it was a phase. In their own way, their rejection was a misplaced attempt at protection.
So, what's the lesson? That parents should actively indulge the fantasies or acting out of their underage children? Otherwise, their parenting skills are misplaced? 9-year-olds? Second graders? Do you really think that these kids have such a masterful handle on themselves, or of life, that jumping into the realm of sexual identity and transgender exceptionalism are examples of good parenting?
But again, through the wisdom of their kid and other parents, they understood that that mindset is the real danger.
The wisdom of their own kid. The 9-year-old. Got it.
Long-standing research shows that trans youth are 8 times more likely to take their own life if they come from a rejecting family.
So they can still elect to take their own lives even if they come from an accepting family, but, just not as often. How comforting. But this isn't fear-mongering. No, not at all.
The more accepted they are, the stronger they are, and the better protected they are from self-harm and harm from others. So slowly, Carla and Tom understood that rejection does not work, but that acceptance is protection.
Acceptance is protection. Yes, your 9-year-old boy is really a girl. Just accept it. Do not question. Do not doubt. Don't ever remain neutral and see how it plays out on its own. It is certainly not a phase the kid might grow out of, but instead, accept and encourage and celebrate. This will protect them.
So, should we all learn to humanize each other differently?
Should we? No. No, we should not. On this, I would agree with our speaker, at least in sentiment.
Do we really know the gender of any child before they tell us who they are?
Yes. They either have a penis or a vagina. They are either male or female. Now, however they choose to live their lives when they are of legal adult age, that is entirely up to them.
Should life really begin with he or she?
It is not a matter of should it begin that way, because it does begin that way.
We have started a new era of gender self-determination. And parenting might have also started a new chapter. One where we discover our kids' gender and where we welcome the gift of authenticity.
The gift of authenticity by denying biology and listening to the wisdom of 9-year-olds. Got it.
About a month ago, I was running a support group, and Carla was there. And we were welcoming a new mom, Jane, who was really struggling.
Ah, a new supplicant was joining the flock. And upon what sermon did you rely to bring her into the fold?
And Carla listened to Jane for a long time. And then she looked at her and said, I know exactly how you feel. I've been there, just like you. And you might not be able to feel this yet, but for me, this was a gift. Isa taught me to be a better parent.
Translation: Carla abdicated her role as a parent to the wisdom of her 9-year-old.
She taught me to be a better person.
Translation: My concern for my child was successfully internalized into guilt over ever having questioned my child's wisdom. I am thus now humbled by my past misdeeds of wrong thinking.
At the end of the group, Jane showed a picture of her kid, and Carla and I looked at each other, remembering our first session. And Carla was on it. She took the phone, she looked at the picture, she looked at Jane and said, "You have a beautiful child. Thank you."
Okay, I will never claim to know the perfect method for parenting. Though, from our speaker's example, it seems I could claim to have such answers and make a healthy career out of selling my own brand of snake oil. Some kids will indeed grow up to have confusion and uncertainties over their sexuality, and perhaps even their sense of masculinity or femininity. But parents, that's the thing. Let them grow up first. As special as you may think your child is, they do not possess life-defining wisdom. Providing that is supposed to be your job, even if you're making it up as you go along. Do not hand over the raising of your child to ideological zealots. As always, thank you for watching.